All right, welcome back, everybody. We have a returning guest on the show, David Aaronson. You guys have met David before. If you're new to the show and you haven't met David, David is the founder and the CEO of a company called REVS, Refuel Electric Vehicle Solutions. David, welcome back. How are things going in your world?
Thank you, Andrew. Good to see you again. Things are good, busy. I think the word has gotten out, despite all the negative press we hear on adoption of electric vehicles. The word has gotten out to the apartment owners, at least, that they need to have charging stations to serve their residents who will or want to drive electric vehicles.
Yeah, and it sounds like, we were talking offline just a little bit. I got a couple questions I want to ask you, kind of about financial incentives and, for apartment owners and things like that. But it sounds like, kicking off the year, first quarter here, you guys have experienced some exponential growth. So all the, the kind of the naysaying and people wondering if electric vehicles were going to be sticky, it seems like that's where the future's still headed.
Yeah, I try to filter through all the short-term negative press and get to the long-term trends. And the reality is this: the goals set forth by our government were incredibly aggressive. Okay, but they had to set up these goals to get people to move.
Right.
I never anticipated uh, meeting those goals, but that doesn't mean if you don't get to, if the goal is 50% EV sales of new cars in 2030 and you get to 35 or 40%, well, there's two ways to look at it. 35 or 40% is a whole lot when you start from zero.
100%.
Or you miss by 25%. I choose the former.
I do too. That's a lot more electric cars on the market.
A
And it
lot
seems like
more
there's new
electric cars.
entrants all the time. I mean, do you see, just out of curiosity, do you see, some of the, the Asian car manufacturers bringing, like China, for example, are they going to be bringing electric vehicles to the US at a lower price point, than some of the domestic manufacturers maybe?
That's a really great question. I don't, I don't see why they wouldn't be here. I mean, we're there.
Yeah.
So unless our government decides they don't want them, which would be very difficult, because like I said, we're in their economy. So how are we going to block them from ours? So,
Yeah.
I stay away from politics.
Oh
Okay.
yeah. No.
And the thing about the EVs that I think most people are missing, okay, is we are moving to a society of convenience.
Yep.
Okay. First of all, it was the industrialization. Then we moved to communication. And now everything it seems like that's going on in our economy is all about convenience. Artificial intelligence is what we hear all day long. Well, that's about convenience.
Yep. It
At
really
the
is
end
at the end of the day. Yeah.
DoorDash, convenience. I mean, you can just go on down the list. The internet, convenience. Amazon, convenience. Electric vehicles, convenience. And people say, well, where's the convenience in that? Well, first off, I don't need to go to a gas station. I can charge at night and home. I don't go out of my way to do it.
Right.
Okay. Well, what if you live in an apartment? By God, that's the problem we're trying to solve. Okay. So
Yeah.
that's why I like where I'm at. But your car is going to be able to do so many more convenient things than it has been, including maybe, automatic driving.
Yep.
It's also going to, as time goes on, the batteries are going to get stronger and less expensive, which is a way to make cars less expensive.
Yep.
And yet give them the same conveniences that a more expensive car has. I'll give you an example. I finally took my Tesla in for a repair. I have a Tesla S. They gave me a Tesla Y with 50,000 miles on it. I think it was a couple-year-old car. It had some conveniences that I hadn't figured out on my Tesla S. Like when the light turns green, the car will make a little pinging sound. That's really convenient.
Yep.
So
It is.
it's basically opening up. It's doing the same thing that chips did to the television business. Today, you can go buy a television that does all kinds of great things.
Yeah.
And it's no more expensive than what you paid 35 years ago for a big, heavy, boxy television that did one thing.
Right.
So that's the EV story, in my opinion, today. Is it's a matter of convenience.
David, you guys are in the business of installing the charging stations and managing those for the client, and ensuring that they've got power to charge those vehicles. Over time, as the technology improves, is the infrastructure that you guys are installing, is it set up to, for increased capacity to charge these cars faster? What's the bottleneck really on, that charging speed? It gets better all the time, but what is it in the component of that entire system that is taking a while to accomplish that supercharge really fast in several minutes? What's the bottleneck in that whole process?
Well, there's two of them, Andrew. One of them is the car itself. Okay, the technology in the car that allows you to onboard the amount of electricity that you can onboard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it started out at 7.2 kilowatts, and now most of the cars are at 9 to 11, with some, including Tesla, at over 20. So that's one thing. But the other thing is, when it comes to multifamily, it's literally every property is different.
Yeah.
Bottleneck at the multifamily is the amount of supply of available electricity to put up charging stations. And it's different for every property. And I can tell you that 99% of the properties, multifamily properties in the United States today, do not have enough to meet the future demand, nor will they ever have enough to meet future demand.
So how does, if they never have enough to meet future demand, is that something that the local governments need to work on? Is that a grid problem, I guess?
Well, it is a problem, especially if you live in a multifamily community, because if you live in a 300 unit multifamily property, you may have 400 parking spaces. You may only be able to put up 4 chargers. And
Right.
one day during the life of this property, especially if it's new, you may have 300 cars that are electric, 400 cars that are electric.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
So you only have 4 chargers. They're going to be busy all the time, but most people aren't going to be able to get to them. And that's where your secondary charging comes in. That's
Gotcha.
where your office, you go to your office and they charge, or you go to Walmart and you get a charge, or a grocery store, or things, some public charging station. Okay. But to us, the top of the food chain in EV charging is where you live.
Yep.
Everything else will be secondary, and you'll have to deal with it. Now, you say that's horrible. Well, what if your battery got 700 or 800 miles?
Yeah.
Okay, out of one charge. You may only need to do that once a month.
Right.
You may need to only refuel once a month. And so you'll figure that out, but it's still only once a month.
Yep.
And you compare that to stopping at a gas station 4 times a month, 3 times a month, and that's where the comparisons come in.
Yeah, and it's getting better. Like all these cars, the new cars that are coming out are longer and longer range every single time.
It's all about, and you know what, Andrew? People ask me, well, they're not selling good. They're not selling good. That's all we hear. But the public isn't stupid. When it comes to electric vehicles, it's all about the price and how far you can go.
Yep.
And if you're trying to sell something for more money when you can't go as far, it's just not going to compete. And that's the problem a lot of the legacy automobile manufacturers are having today, is their product just doesn't match up yet.
Yeah. I mean, nobody's going to pay for an inferior product. That's why Tesla's done so well. They've got a great entry car that sells like hotcakes. So you can't say electric vehicles don't work. David, for an apartment complex that's looking for, this kind of infrastructure, I've only got a couple minutes left, but I wanted to ask on, financial incentives. Are you seeing more of that being discussed from local governments, footing some of the bill for this? Because, the government is the one that's driving a lot of the electric vehicle discussion, and they're going to have to partner with, private entities on the infrastructure. Are you seeing that happen?
Yeah, yes, and Andrew, we get a lot of incentives. And it depends. Some states don't offer any, but you have the state, you have the federal government, you have the state government, and then you have local utilities. And we probably see more grants from local utilities than we do from the state level. I say that, maybe not, but there's a lot of them. And you have
Yep.
grants and you have rebates. And there's a difference between one is, a rebate, you get to do the work first and then send it in for a reimbursement. And a grant, you generally have to get all your ducks in a row before you spend any money, get the grant money, and then go spend it. But there's a lot of those out there. We take full advantage of them. I do not expect them to always be out there. And that's one reason it pays to do it today. If I have one more minute, I will tell you there's a big flaw in how the government is looking at these incentives when they give out incentives. They are looking to put them, they really focus their incentives on lower income areas. Okay. Well, lower income areas, while they need them, it's not going to drive absorption of electric vehicles. The people that live in lower income areas usually are buying used cars.
Right.
In order to have a used car, what do you need to have first? A new car. Before a car, you can sell a used car, you got to sell new cars. So they ought to be pushing as many new cars out so you can get to the used cars.
True.
Instead of just the opposite is what they're doing. They're saying we're going to give 75% of our money to low income areas and 25%, to the higher income areas. Well, if you really want adoption, get the people with the money to do it, and then they'll sell into the used car market, and you'll have demand in lower income areas. That's my political speech. I'm through with politics.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot.
But
It
I
makes
think it
sense
makes
to me.
sense.
You gotta drive the supply to get the new supply to get the used supply. David, there's
It's
always way more to talk about than we have time for. I'm out of time. If you guys are watching the show, I say this all the time when we talk to guests. These are, I mean, especially Revs is on the forefront of installing, electric vehicle charging stations in multifamily communities. So if you guys are investors in real estate, you're in the multifamily business, look up David, give his team a call, and they will do the analysis and get you guys, set up with electric vehicle refueling solutions, as the name says, at your facility. So, David, until next time, really appreciate you being on the show, and look forward to having you on again.
Thank you, Andrew. Have a good day.
You too. Thanks. We'll be right back.
Bye-bye.
Everybody.